Hey everyone, please like, comment, subscribe, and share the video. So I wanted to briefly talk about the Jussie Smollett situation and a double standard that I've been noticing in social media. So for those of you that don't know who Jussie Smollett is, maybe you've been living under a rock. Jussie Smollett is an actor on Empire. His character's name on the show is Jamal. And lately he's been in the media because he's allegedly staged an attack against himself and stated that he was the victim of a homophobic and racist hate crime. So, Jussie Smollett stated that he was going to Subway at about 2 a.m. in Chicago after filming and was attacked and had bleach thrown on him and a rope tied around his neck. Some people thought that story was pretty sketchy initially, and come to find out, the entire thing was fabricated. So recently, what I've been noticing in social media is that there's been a bias as it relates to how people are handling the Jussie Smollett situation. And when I've noticed that other individuals, mainly white individuals, that have been charged with similar crimes. Jussie Smollett was charged with filing a false police report. And I was on Facebook and I was actually in a 2-day debate with someone because I brought up the Ryan Lotch situation, which, if you don't know who he is an Olympic swimmer. I believe that, yeah, Olympic swimmer who went to Brazil and vandalized a gas station, lied and stated that he was robbed at gunpoint, and basically embarrassed the United States. So on Facebook, I was in a debate and I pointed out that I've noticed in the media that when white men do similar crimes to black men, they're usually treated with kid gloves. And to me, that is extremely biased. Some people don't agree with that. Some people think that when you state those sort of things, that you're being that you're pulling the race card. And what I want to say to that is that I think that no one can deny that there is a bias in the way that black men and white men are treated in the media. Um, you hate to say that, but it's true. It's really true. People rush to judgment in the Jussie Smollett situation. And I think that we don't know all the facts. Jussie hasn't admitted to anything as of right now. He hasn't come out and said that the things that are being stated is what actually took place. And I'm noticing a rush to judgment. And I think that it's unfair because, as I stated, when white men do similar crimes, they're treated very gently and kind in the media. And I think that, we're doing ourselves a disservice by being so quick to throw black men under the bus. Especially I'm seeing a lot of this from black people. And I think that we need to take the time to think about how we are so quick to jump to judgment and, throw one another under the bus, because we don't see this in situations, especially like the situation, as I stated before, with Ryan Lotch. When he went to Brazil and trashed that store, the media painted him as a kid having fun. And at the time that he did that, he was 32 years old. So he was not a kid at all. And with the Jussie Smollett situation, I'm seeing that people are saying he needs to be prosecuted to the furthest extent of the law. And, it's just very unfortunate that us knowing that Black men are already, treated unfairly in the judicial system. So for us to get on social media and basically convict them in the court of public opinion before they're even convicted in court is unfortunate, it's unfair, and it kind of sets the precedent for Black men to be mistreated in the judicial system. So just to give you a little bit of a background on what is currently going on with the Jussie Smollett situation, Jussie Smollett was arrested. He was charged with filing a false police report, and he could be facing up to 3 years in prison. I see someone in the chat said that lock Smollett up. He's a lying fraud and a narcissist loser. Okay, this person, they don't have a picture. They're not showing their face, but that's their opinion. And like I said, I didn't see that same energy. I didn't see that same energy for the Ryan Locks of the world when he did the same thing Jussie did, filed a false police report, lied and said that he was held up at gunpoint. And I didn't see too many people coming out to throw him under the bus, how they're throwing Jussie under the bus. So that's quite odd to me. Same person says 45 years for federal mail fraud. Okay. That's pretty funny to me because, like I said, Black man does the same thing that a white man does, and it's not that same level of animosity or hate when a white man does it. They're treated very kindly in the media. Oh, Forward Movement says FBI says Chicago PD has spoken too fast. Yeah, that is something else that I was going to cover. I'm glad you brought that up, Forward Movement. Yes, the FBI actually is involved with the case as well. And they're saying that Chicago PD, might I add, that does not have the greatest reputation and is pretty corrupt. The FBI stated that the FBI misspoke and they're overstating because there is no proof actually that Jussie Smollett sent the threatening letter to himself. They're still actually looking into that letter. And also the two guys in the situation, most people already know now that two of his co-actors on the show Empire, they stated that they were hired to stage the attack with Jussie, and he paid them to beat him up. However, those two brothers, two Nigerian brothers, actually, one was his trainer, and the other one, I'm not really remembering right now what his job description was. But they are also stating that they did not write the letter, which that is very interesting as well, because I guess we will have to sit around and see who actually sent that letter. Because Jussie is obviously saying it wasn't him, and the two involved is saying that they didn't write the letter as well. So that's quite interesting to me. Another thing that I wanted to speak on, as I was stating before, about the double standard. What I really would like for us to do, especially in Black society, is we really need to stop getting on social media platforms and speaking out against each other, and in such a way that we don't do to other people. I don't see any other group of people getting on social media and pretty much dragging each other in the fashion that we do. And I think that hurts us a lot more than it helps us, for the simple fact that, as I was saying before, Black men are already given the short end of the stick in the judicial system. And it doesn't help any that when we get on social media and we convict them in the court of public opinion, before they're even able to defend themselves, go to court, have a trial, so on and so forth. I've seen people get on platforms like Facebook and basically say, throw him in jail. And I'm not defending what he did. You know, if it comes out that he actually did these things, there should be some form of punishment for what he did. But to say that he needs to be punished to the furthest extent of the law, I think that's going too far. I mean, all the time we see these situations happen, and you know, when it's a white male, no one is calling for them to be punished to the furthest extent of the law for, you know, crimes where no one was hurt. In this situation with Jussie, no one was hurt in this situation, you know, besides himself, because he allegedly sent the guys to attack him. But you know, to say he needs to be prosecuted to the furthest extent of the law is, in my opinion, is going overboard. You know, we tend to do that to one another a lot. And also I've seen other people of the Caucasian persuasion that, you know, they are quick to, in a situation where a black man is involved, they'll say, okay, you know, this guy needs to go to jail. What he did was so wrong. And then when I point out to them, well, you know, this individual did the same thing. Well, then they'll say, oh, well, that's not the same thing. It's different. For example, with the Ryan Lott situation, I actually got into a debate with someone on Facebook because I was saying, you know, Ryan Lott did the same thing. And no one was calling for his arrest. They were referring to him as a kid. They were saying boys will be boys. He was having fun. And they told me it wasn't the same thing. You know, it happened in another country, so they don't care. It doesn't affect them. But I think people need to have an understanding for what you put out there on social media and the public platform. It does have influence on people's lives. It does have a tendency to sway public opinion. And as we can see, it's actually starting to sway how people are affected in their in real life. You know, this is not something that we should take lightly. We need to tread very carefully when we're on public platforms calling for people's arrests and saying, you know, they should be in prison for things that in most cases a person would just receive a fine or probation or something like that. And also, I want to touch really quickly on some of the feminists and how, you know, anything involving a man, they're very quick to persecute. And I feel that, you know, that's very dangerous because, you know, when you're out here and you're swaying public opinion, I don't think that we understand how that is setting a precedent for how Black men will be treated across the board. You have to think about if you're raising a Black son and the amount of propaganda that goes into, you know, berating Black men in the media on a daily basis. You don't help that situation by getting on social media platforms and spewing that type of rhetoric for, you know, spewing that type of rhetoric against Black men. It does not help at all. And I think that, you know, we need to think about that when we're spewing the rhetoric. We don't understand how that can spill out into clumping all Black men together. It's very dangerous. It's a very dangerous road that we're traveling down when we do that. Okay, Forward Movement says, can you speak on wow. Okay, that's a bit of a change of topic, but I guess we can touch on that. Forward Movement says, can you speak on these Black men blaming Black women for our position in society right now? Wow, that's a loaded topic. That's a really loaded topic. That is something else that I've been noticing in all over social media, all over YouTube, actually. There's a lot of YouTube channels that are related to men basically blaming Black women for the position that we're in society right now. And my question to those men would be, why are so many Black women raising children on their own? You know, I think that's something that we need to look into, because the rhetoric that's being pushed right now is that single mothers, mainly Black single mothers, are responsible for the position that the Black community is in. And I think that it's very shiftless for men to blame women for that. You know, in any other culture or any other society, men are usually the leaders of that society. So for men to blame women, that I believe that that's just completely ridiculous. I feel like, especially when you see the amount of crime that's in the community, it's usually a lot of the young men that are committing these crimes, and I think that that's mainly because there is no male role model for these young men. And you know, when young men get to a certain age, there's only so much that a mother can do to protect that young man and kind of keep him from being out on the streets and getting into things. You know, I even read a post the other day where someone, I won't name names, but he stated that during the crack era, if Black women just wouldn't have had sex with the drug dealers, then the sale of crack could have ended overnight. That was one of the most ridiculous things I have ever seen. And I questioned him on it. And he basically said, you know, Black women are the leaders of the community. I've never heard any other group of men say that the women are the leaders of the community. So that was very odd to me. And spewing the rhetoric that Black women are responsible for the conditions of Black society, that's a very dangerous. And one of the main reasons that that is extremely dangerous is because a lot of these men who think this way, they don't feel like Black women need protection of any sort. You know, they push out a lot of very dangerous rhetoric against Black women. And what that does is it basically shows men in other societies that Black women just aren't protected, and leaves them open to all sorts of attacks. I don't know if anyone remembers the incident that occurred with the young lady at McDonald's, where the guy basically tried to grab her over the counter while Black men stood and didn't protect her. You know, when those sorts of things happen, it kind of sends out a dog whistle to other groups of men that these women are not going to be protected by the men in their community. So pushing that message out there that Black women are, you know, to blame for the position of Black society right now, like I said, I think that's a very dangerous. It's propaganda, and I think it's very, very dangerous. And I feel like it's something that it needs to stop. It really does need to stop, because there's a generation of young men that are coming up, and they're being taught this rhetoric that Black women are not worthy of protection. They are the cause of all the ills in Black society. And although many of us know that's not true, you know, we don't know who's being influenced by that. So that's something that we really need to come together as a community, and we need to encourage these young men to support Black women. Black women need to support Black men. And there's so much work that, we need to do in Black society to push us forward. Um, because when you look at the Black community, unfortunately, you know, I hate to admit this, but the Black community, and a large portion of it is very dysfunctional. And I think that's because we don't want to talk to each other. A lot of times, when the men want to place blame on the women want to place blame on the men, and it really doesn't get us anywhere. We need to come together because, the situations that we're in and the conditions that we're in as a community, it's not going to be fixed by shifting blame. We have to come together and figure out how we're going to solve the problems in our community. Okay, so Blim says, how do you suggest young Black women and men support each other? Well, the first thing that we can do is we can sit down and we can have a conversation with one another about why there's so much fighting and bickering among Black men and Black women. Like I said before, I think it's because neither side wants to take accountability. The men say that they want to be the leaders of the community, and in many cases, when they see that leadership position, it takes a lot of work. They kind of try to shift that job onto the women. But if you say you want to be a leader in the community, you have to lead. You can't back out of that responsibility just because it's hard. Our community is not going to be repaired with a bunch of people not wanting to take accountability, not want to step up into their position. The men have to step up into their position as the leaders of the community. That's just exactly what needs to happen. And as far as the women need to support the men. Sometimes we do have a tendency to be a little bit rough on the men, and it's not to make them feel small or make them feel like they're not fit to lead us. Sometimes it's just frustration that we see the potential. Black men have so much potential, and it gets frustrating when we don't see Black men stepping into that potential, stepping into that role as the leaders. It can get very frustrating. And I feel like, that's when you see a lot of the arguing and the infighting going on. It's just a lot of pent up frustration. And then there's a big push in the media as well to only point out the negative things that are happening between Black men and Black women. That's pretty much all you see is dysfunction. And that's what's being pushed out there. Okay, please share so we can get like minds here. Okay. So yeah, Blims, that is my suggestion on how Black men and Black women can support each other, by listening to one another and by coming up with constructive ways that we can uplift our society. No one is going to do that for us. That responsibility is solely on us. And I feel like if we can put the petty bickering beside, set it to the side and just support one another, then a lot of these issues that we're facing, they can be resolved. Just trying to read some of these comments. Okay. All right. So, if anyone wants to comment on this situation as far as Black men blaming Black women for our positions in society, I'm reading a few comments right now. And another thing that I wanted to shed light on, like I was stating before, is the younger generation that is following us. They are looking at the way we treat each other. and they are seeing that as something that is being normalized. Dysfunction in Black society is being normalized. You know, there's some kids that don't even know what a normal functioning Black family looks like. They've never seen it. They've never seen a Black woman and a Black man in a, you know, happy functioning relationship. They usually hear their mother speaking ill of their father or the father speaking ill of their mother. So, you know, that is something that we really, really need to work on. I feel like if we want our children to see what functioning Black families look like, that responsibility is on us, because as you can see, the propaganda that is against us, they don't have a vested interest in showing Black families in a positive light. So that is our responsibility, and we definitely, definitely need to uplift one another. Um, Definitely make sure that we're showing the younger generation what functioning families look like. And, you know, like I said, I think we'll be fine. We will be fine. We don't have to look outside of our communities for anything to change. You know, all these things we can change ourselves. You know, it's a difficult task, but it can be done. And I feel like we need to come together and we need to do that. Okay, reading some more comments here. Hmm, okay, just bear with me. Try to see if there's any more comments here. Okay, Blim says, "Amen, sis. The change begins with us." Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, we cannot expect for anyone to change our conditions. It is up to us. There's no outside help coming for us. You know, we're all we have, and we need to we need to really harper on that fact that we're the only ones that can change our conditions. And another thing that I wanted to touch on is the lack of self-esteem in Black society. I put a post on Facebook and I stated that we need to stop looking to be accepted by everyone else. We need to accept ourselves. And that is something that we really need to do, because we look outside of ourselves so much for acceptance. And it's mainly rooted in the fact, I believe, that we don't feel that we are good enough. We need acceptance from other groups of people. And honestly, we don't. We don't need to be accepted by anyone else. I feel like if we begin to accept ourselves and build our confidence, build each other up, then that validation from outside groups will not be necessary. You know, we spend so much time worrying about what other people think of us that we don't focus on the good and great things about ourselves. And some people didn't agree with that. They thought it was divisive, but we have to be honest with ourselves. You know, why do we look for so much validation from other groups of people? We just have to be honest with the fact that other races, they don't sit down and think about what Black people are going to think about them in any situation. So we have to ask ourselves, why are we so quick to care what other people think about us? I feel like we spend so much time doing that, and we don't focus on what it is that we need to be focusing on. So, I just want to encourage people to start caring more about what you think about yourself. Seeking validation from outside groups, it doesn't help us. It keeps us looking at our flaws and, what we don't like about ourselves, as opposed to the positive attributes and what we offer to the world. We've done so much and we don't take the time to learn our history, to learn what we've contributed to society. There was so much that as a group that we've contributed to society. And, not knowing that history, I believe, is a large part of why we don't have the self-esteem that we need to have as a society. We base a lot of our decisions off of what other people will think. We don't really support one another in our business endeavors. And, it's just very frustrating. Okay, I see some more comments coming in, but don't you think a lot of that is by design? A lot of it is by design. A lot of it is by design. Ever since many of our ancestors arriving in this country, there's been a propaganda mill spinning 7 days a week to make us look bad. But my thing of it is when are we going to break down those barriers and, say that we know who we are and we're not going to feed into the propaganda anymore? Because if we continue to fall into the trap of we're less than, we can't do it as good as other groups, we're never going to make any progress. And I think a lot of that has been holding us back. It is by design. But, you can only allow someone to hold you down for so long. At some point, you have to get up. You have to say that I'm going to make a change in my life. I'm not going to continue to allow my group, to suffer and to be held back. The biggest thing that we can do as a community is come together and, tear down those stereotypes. We know who we are and we don't have to fall into that. We don't have to buy into the fact that we've never done anything, we don't contribute anything to society. Many of us know that that's not true. So for those of us that know that that's not true, we need to be working toward encouraging other people and letting them know that there is a propaganda mill running against us, but we don't have to feed into it. We can begin to build each other up and we can move on from this because, there's a lot of work to be done in the community, and us just sitting there being complacent with the conditions that we're in, it's not going to solve anything. It's not going to help us move forward. So even if it is by design, we as a society, we as a group, we have to move past that. Oh, Blim said, is this a weekly show? I didn't see that comment. Yes, Blims, this will be a regular show, a regular weekly show. And actually, this is my very first show. So I just want to say welcome to everyone who's watching right now. Thank you for watching. And I'm going to end it right here. You can look in the description box to find my social media platforms. And I can't see the bottom of the page right now, but Facebook is Shelly Speaks and Twitter is Shelly Speaks 1. Thank you, Blims. Okay, everyone. Thank you for watching.